Hi, Mark White here. I'm the president and founder of Idaho Estate Planning. And as the name implies, we do estate planning. And I've been thinking of changing that to people stuff planning because people are so worried about, I don't have an estate, Mark, so I don't need any planning. So let's talk about people. Let's talk about stuff. Today, we're going to talk about people and we're going to talk about places. Joining me today is a friend of mine, Catherine. We go back a few years.
Absolutely.
Catherine Owens, and she is, I wrote this down so that I would remember it, the regional sales specialist of Revel Communities. And that's a bigger group, but we have a location here in Eagle, Revel Eagle, and I've been there and it's gorgeous and they've done just a tremendous job. The folks that are living there, this is independent, is that the right term to use, independent living? Catherine, is there a better term?
Well, yes, it is independent living. We like to say it's independent living reimagined.
Got it. Well, and quite frankly, if somebody goes to visit and they spend a little bit of time, maybe have lunch, they're going to go, whoa, I didn't realize that this is what it would be like. And having in the last 3 years worked with a parent who was at home, who was alone, and in the home, there were concrete steps going up the front, concrete steps going up the garage into the kitchen, who was driving around, doing her own grocery shopping, and then carrying it into the house, and then putting it away, and then cooking for herself, and then worrying about leftovers, and then when to throw it out and when not. Oh, anyhow, as kids, she had a couple of falls, and so we were really concerned about her safety. So we began this effort to find a place, a situation. It is now her apartment, by the way.
I'm proud of you, Mark. This is a big step.
Yeah. Well, when you begin this conversation, this is home. Where we are is home. It's never going to change. And I just can't imagine moving into a place. And, 2 years, almost 3 years later, good grief, I think it's three now. This is her apartment. This is her place. Those are her people. So interestingly, that changes. So Catherine is with me. She wrote a really good book that if you don't have, you should get. It's Be Your Own Hero. And the effort was to simplify some of these decisions.
Absolutely, Mark. It was a book that I wrote in the hope that people would actually take the time to be proactive in making some of these important decisions versus being reactive. As you were talking about your mom, I always think that there's typical mindsets people have when considering this type of decision, whether it's the adult child or the senior themselves. And two of those mindsets, one is peace of mind. And I imagine you have a lot more peace of mind now that you know that she's safe and in an environment that gives her that quality of life. Yeah. And then the practical, logical reasons why people make that move. And just you describing her home situation and the current situation that she is in now and the place that has become her home, it sounds like it really was a more practical solution for her at this time in her life.
Yeah, and you're going to tell us this. I know I'm going to turn this, I'm going to start this, and then you're going to explain this, but you cannot make this decision for them. As a child, you cannot make this decision for them. You can't tell them what they're going to do and how to do it. Well, you shouldn't, even if maybe you could.
Well, you bring up a really good point because the hope is that you never have to make that decision for your parent. More often than not, the adult child is, I like to say, in the driver's seat with their parents as they're going through the decision. You're supporting them in that decision process. When a child has to step in and make that decision is when someone waits until that crisis, when someone waits until there's a life event and they're no longer able to independently make that decision themselves. So again, writing that book was meant to get people to shift the paradigm of thinking I'm going to lose control and actually take control and make the decision when they can independently do so with the support of their family and loved ones.
Yes. So a couple of thoughts that I have with that. In planning, especially the estate or the people stuff planning, that's my term. I came up with that. I talk about being intentional. So you can either be in control and be intentional about decision making, or you can get the default decision. And staying at home, being safe, and having a high quality of life is not the default position. If you want to determine where your home is going to be, and you want to make sure that you're safe and that you have a high quality of life, those are proactive decisions. Those generally are not the default situation.
I love that you said that. And what we as a society have grown accustomed to, or our thought process, is we think successful aging is aging in place. And really, successful aging at any age is putting in place what you need to continue aging well, being successful, having the best quality of life with your current needs and abilities and desires, and continuing to grow and thrive and have that sense of purpose. So another thought process, shift the idea of aging in place. What you said is what we think the default is of staying in our home, yeah, where we think we're going to have the better quality of life, and really take the time to evaluate what type of home is going to give you the best quality of life and allow for that opportunity to age well and successfully.
Well, as everybody that's listening in knows, the year 2020 has been a really interesting year. We have this COVID thing going on out there, and that has really shifted a lot of thinking. And I think you mentioned this, and I'm going to pick up on that just before we got on. You mentioned the fact that a lot of people are realizing that being isolated, which a lot of folks are right now, we're quarantined, we're isolated. Maybe when that's our decision, that goes down a little bit easier, but right now it's not our decision. And I think you were saying that people are reacting rather strongly to that.
They are. And traditionally with senior living, one of the things people wait for when they think when is the right time to make a move is when they can no longer physically take care of themselves. And really the most important thing is to have that social and that peer-to-peer, those opportunities in place, the opportunities to stay safely active. What we're finding with COVID is because of that isolation, whether it's your choice or not, but that hunkering down, that isolation, that increased loneliness, people are recognizing even more the impacts that it has on your health, physically, emotionally, cognitively, the importance of having it in place to continue to thrive and stay healthy. And so now there's been this shift where instead of waiting until I can no longer take care of myself, people are recognizing that it's absolutely critical that they get into a home and an environment that provides those social and peer-to-peer opportunities, even if they are maintaining the social distancing, safety protocols, the staying in place. If you can stay in place in a community setting and still have people around you in your home in a safe way, you still have those opportunities for those social engagement, for that opportunities to stay active, to see and be around other people, which is so important for all of us at any age.
Well, and this year really points up something. I think many people have recognized this before, but it was really brought to an unavoidable head this year. You can't get away from this, and that is if you are relying on your television to be your social interaction with the world, right? And provide the quality of life this year, that was the wrong decision. I mean, we had political and social unrest. We've had an election that was, you know, for many people of a certain age, don't remember it ever being quite like that. And it's actually not over. So there's continuing coverage or lack of coverage, if you asked my opinion. And now we have these 24-hour news cycles where, you know what, they say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. That can't be good for people.
No, it's not. And there has been, to your point, a lot of just unrest, uncertainty, a lot of change in how we live our lives in every imaginable way that we would not have ever imagined. So, but you have that all day long with no other distractions because you're just stuck in your home and that's all you have. It really does take a toll on you.
So now I get pushback on this because I'm just the attorney. I'm just an advisor. But I get back on this. Well, listen, I've got my family, you know, I've got my church group. I've got my, you know, my girls club, you know, I have all of these things and they're there to support me. But sept. My kids used to say, but sept. Except that church has been interesting. It's been more difficult to get together. We're doing it. I recognize that, but it's not as easily done. People are not as likely to come to your house and come into the house as we were before. So that sort of a social network is a little bit more difficult now. Plus, if the weather's bad, and I'm not saying we've had bad weather, it's just been raining and or snowing for a couple of weeks now. Those are all things that get us isolated. And then we turn on the TV because we know the TV will always be there. My mom's getting better at calling me. She's waited in the past. She's waited until I called, but she's doing a better job now of just calling me and say, hey, I haven't talked to you. What's going on? But you know what? There's a lot of loneliness involved with that. And it seems to me that this news coverage only reinforces it. It does not give you any sort of a visible warm human interaction or reinforcement. Are there different living situations that, you know, might address that a little bit better?
You bring up a couple good points. To your immediate question, are there different living arrangements? Absolutely. So you take COVID and you take staying in place and all of those social opportunities that maybe someone traditionally has in place. I'll give an example. I have a lady that went to the senior center 3 times a week to play bridge. She had the ladies' lunch group. She had her church group and her Bible study. Her kids would come over. She would go over with her kids, or they'd go out to a meal or to dinner. All of the sudden, COVID hits. All of those places that she would use to have that social interaction are closed, no longer happening.
Yeah.
The kids are, you know, for some reason not able to see her because of job, or they're trying to keep mom safe. The restaurants, all of those places, the things that they would go do together are no longer open. And it's interesting because prior to COVID, there's been so many studies that show the importance of having that social interaction. They show the impact that loneliness and isolation has on people's health. You compound that with the added isolation and loneliness and all of that negative uncertainty that's going on in the world around us, it creates a whole different level of loneliness and isolation. Now we're just getting into the holidays, which take out the COVID equation. We all know that the holidays are significantly harder for our seniors, that there's typically an increased death rate, illness rate with our seniors during the holidays because of the impacts of loneliness and isolation. So you've got all of these things now happening at one time that are just compounding on one another. And you ask if there's better environments. I look at, I'll give you an example, Revel Eagle, or all of our Revel communities. It's an opportunity for someone to be in a community setting, have that socially distanced, safe protocols, not have to go out to restaurants, not have to go out to the senior center, not have to run out to the post office. So they're not putting themselves at additional risk that's kind of in uncontrolled environments. But the example of the lady I gave that loved to go play bridge, that loved to go out to eat, that loved to meet the ladies, to have lunch, she moved into one of our communities, and all of a sudden, all of those things that she was no longer able to do, she is now able to do in a safe way. So she's staying safe, just like you. Her family has peace of mind that not only is mom safe, there's people checking on her every day, there's people making sure that she's okay. It's an environment that's controlled with safety measures, but she can continue having the quality of life and continue to thrive and do well during these times. So I love what you say, that home isn't necessarily a place, but it's a place that you are safe, that you're comfortable, that you have those things in place that allow you to continue having that quality of life.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that mom noticed, which was really interesting, is she had a breakfast group and a lunch group and a dinner group, and most of them the same. But she also noticed if, one of them didn't come down to breakfast. Well, going back up to her room, she could knock on a door and say, Betty, didn't see you at breakfast. Everything okay? Oh, yeah, I just this, that, and the other. And then if she wasn't there, whether it was neighbors or staff that would say, Mary Jo, we missed you today. Everything okay? Well, what was awesome for her is that if it was she missed that because of one of her kids or grandkids, you can imagine the opportunity to brag on her kids or her grandkids or her great grandkids for that matter. But now she had a built-in community. Another part of the safety that we kids liked is that she didn't have to go start the car and back it down the driveway and then drive out onto the street and then go find a place to park and walk all the way. Okay, here's the story. We were looking at some situations, a couple of communities that we looked at, and we looked at one that she kind of liked. She says, you know what, I could see myself here. And I said, that's great. Well, I pulled into an over 55 community right across the street. And so she asked, what are we doing here? I said, well, I just thought maybe you'd like to look, this is a cute little place. They've got some really nice, duplexes and patio homes. You could like it here. And she goes, yeah, but do they fix my meals here? Do they put away the groceries? Do they do any of that? And I said, well, no, you're on your own for all of that. And she goes, no, I don't think so. That's a change in concept, though. That's a completely change from our traditional Western United States style of thinking that I have to be in this family home where I've been for, so many years.
It is. And it's great that she's come to that place, and I call them those intangible benefits. We can look at a community, and you bring up a really good point. Everybody has different amenities, how they provide them, the quality, the level, the flexibility, the opportunity to have as much customization as possible. But you bring up a really good point, because for everybody, there's those intangible benefits that are very personal. For you and your siblings, it was that peace of mind. It was the safety. Mom wasn't walking down those cement stairs. She wasn't getting in the car. But for her, it sounds like it was not having to deal with those day-to-day chores. And you also mentioned her, people checking on her if she wasn't there, her being able to check on other people. Again, another intangible benefit of, someone's watching out for you. You know that someone cares. You have that opportunity to care for other people. So it's interesting, but I always tell people, take the time to define what you want to gain by making a change. And so as you're looking at the different potential homes or communities, you really know what it is that you're looking for and what's going to fit those needs. And your mom walking in and saying, why would I move there if they don't do X, Y, and Z? Because she had in her mind what she wanted to gain for making a move.
So we're not here necessarily saying that one's better than another, across the board. It's really a personal preference. But when do we start that discussion? When would, if you're in those, post-retirement years, tell me when we should start thinking about, maybe looking at a different home situation. Walk us through that process a little bit.
So the easy answer, people always ask me, when should I, make a move to a senior living community? And I always tell them, before you need to. But the other thing is, again, we've talked about that idea that we have of aging in place and what that means. And that's a simple, you stay in your home as long as possible. And really being honest with yourself and thinking more of, what do I need in place in my current situation to have the best life possible, to have an environment that meets my needs? And so take the time to really think through that. That's going to be different for everybody. It may be in your home and it may be in a community, but as your needs change, maybe with your mom when she's no longer driving, or maybe when something like COVID hits and you can't continue to have those social opportunities in place that you would traditionally have. As your needs change, reassess if your current situation supports those needs and the quality of life that you want to maintain. And I tell people to, again, be proactive, educate yourself on the different types of communities, just like you and your mom were looking at a few different options and they provided different things. But take the time to educate yourself, whether or not you ever make a move. At least you understand the options available, and you're going to walk in just like your mom did and say, I can see myself living here. Or you're going to walk in and say, ooh, I would never live there. But taking that time to educate yourself is really what's going to allow you to, when the time comes, make the best decisions as possible.
Yeah, when I work with families, sometimes it's mom and or dad that are saying, I think I got to be thinking about this. Unfortunately, more often it's the kids. I suggest as strongly as I can that go do some visits. Mm-hmm. Just get an idea, because I think, all right. When I was a kid, and that was some time ago, my mom was very musical, and she would have us kids sing. And we would go visit some of the old folks' homes, or the nursing homes, as we called them back then. And we would go, and they smelled old, and people smelled old, and you had the tile floors, and it was cold, or it felt cold to us. And that was the prevailing mindset, is that's that nursing home, and I don't want to go in that nursing home. And It wasn't until actually not too long ago in my life, a decade and a little bit ago, that I was able to go visit some folks in the independent living and some assisted livings. And I was going, wait a minute,
Mhm.
this is really different from what I grew up with. And I think that people still have this kind of they're stuck with this image in their heads. And so I think you would agree that get out and visit, go visit some places. And for my mother-in-law, it was lunch. It was going and getting lunch. That we were done at that point. After
Yeah.
she had some lunch, she was
Well,
like,
and she's
"Oh,
a smart lady because, you're eating the food there every day. And so I think, are you going to want to eat at the same restaurant every day? You bring up a really good point. I tell people to go and look at multiple communities so they can really differentiate one community from another. But also, there's a lot of misconceptions we have, or a lot of stereotypes that we have about what senior living is. And a lot of times it's that picture that you painted when someone walks in and they go, oh my gosh, this actually would allow me to have a better quality of life than I'm having right now. It gives me opportunities to stay independent, to not be dependent on my family, to not be dependent on all the people that are providing support. But they have to go see it to know that, because there's so many stereotypes, stigmas, misconceptions associated with senior living communities, to the point that nobody even wants to discuss it, when in reality, really, oftentimes those very communities give the person back what they're fighting so hard to maintain. And that's that sense of independence, that sense of control, that quality of life. And they don't realize that by staying in an environment, whatever it is, that doesn't meet those current needs, they actually could lose those things.
yeah, I think oh my gosh, I think that sneaks up on people way, way more than we realize, that they think that they're doing just fine. And of course, they don't realize necessarily that those that may be dealing with some cognitive issues, of course, don't realize they're dealing with some cognitive issues. Um, I think some people feel that they're just stuck. I've got to stay here because this is all I got. Again, that's why I say this is not being intentional. This is, I'm just stuck. This is all I have. There's nothing else out there that I can do.
And there's that also for anyone, all of us, it's a human, we are all afraid of change. 9 times out of 10, someone would rather stay in a situation that maybe wasn't working that well, because at least they knew what to expect. And I kind of think of that analogy when you put a frog in a pot of cold water and you slowly turn up the heat, and the frog continues to just slowly adapt and adapt until it's boiling over and it's too late. You also bring up a good point when there's some cognitive decline. And we talked earlier about kids having to make the decision, or kids playing a role in the decision. And one of the topics I talk about in my book is the idea that as needs change, your role in that decision process may change. So if a parent does have cognitive decline, or a spouse has some cognitive decline, and you're relying on them to make a decision, but they may not have the abilities to process everything that goes with that decision, they may not recognize things, as you said, that are impacting their well-being. And I hear a lot of times, I'm managing, I'm doing fine. And I always say life isn't meant to be managed, it's meant to be lived. And so is your environment allowing you to continue living the best life possible?
Yeah, very good. So, there's two things I want to talk about. One is there are people, I think, that are managing. I'm just doing okay, thank you very much. And I think in the back of their mind that this COVID thing is just going to go away. And then life will be good again. It might not be that great now, but I'm managing. And if we can just get rid of this COVID thing, life is going to be good again. I think that's really easy to fall into, but is that accurate?
It is really easy to fall into, and it's not the safest or best solution because, as we all are seeing, COVID's not going away anytime soon. All of these safety measures that are being put in place and some of these restrictions, there's going to be some level of that in place for the foreseeable future. I have seen people actually move out of a community because of the concerns of COVID, and they go and they sit in their house and do nothing all day because they want to stay safe, and they're actually declining in health emotionally, physically. They're losing their mobility, they're losing their independence. So we have to be really careful because, yes, it's important that we keep our loved ones safe. It's important that we stay safe. It's important that we follow these safety protocols, but it's absolutely critical that we continue to keep in place things that are going to allow us to stay overall healthy and have overall well-being. And I've seen too many times through COVID these last few months of people letting fear of COVID, which it's a very valid fear, drive their decisions. It needs to be part of the decision, but also all of those other needs that they have to be part of the decision as well. And so how do you make the best and safest decision based on all of those factors?
So then the follow-up to that is we could get looking now. We don't have to wait until the COVID thing is over. And a little caveat with that is, so what's the next thing?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we get the vaccines out and everybody's vaccinated. What's the next thing?
Yes. Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's always a couple questions I ask people to just take the time to answer, because a lot of times, like you said, there's uncertainty. We kind of don't know the direction we need to go. We maybe know something isn't working, but we really don't know what it is that we're needing, what's stopping us from making decisions. So first, what is it, what's the decision that you're trying to make, but what are you hoping to gain by making a change? What are concerns or fears that you may have in making that change? And what would it take for you to feel safe and to have the best quality of life possible? Because a lot of times I think what I'm seeing is people think I can't be safe and still live life to the fullest. Yeah. And you can. It's just, what is it going to take and what do you need to have that in place and go from there?
These are tough times. I get it. I don't know. I've been encouraging people to make decisions anyway. You can't just, the default plan is not going to work. So you've got to be proactive, because the opposite of that is like waiting until somebody else makes decisions for you. Our good friend Eric Collette at a Mind for All Seasons has always talked about that window. The window is that opportunity to make a change in your life while you're physically able to do it, socially able to do it, cognitively strong enough to do something like that. But that window isn't open forever. There's this window, which it would be best to even be prepared before the window even opens, so that you have an idea what it is that you want to do. So maybe I answered the question that we were talking about earlier. When should you be thinking about this? And this afternoon wouldn't be too soon. Today wouldn't be too soon.
No, it wouldn't. And then again, that's why I always say before you need to make that move, before that window appears.
Yeah.
And I always tell people have plan A and have plan B, again, being proactive and planning, but plan A is in a perfect scenario. What would it look like?
Yeah.
And plan B is when something does happen, whether it's COVID and now we're all of a sudden isolated and hunkered down, whether it's a fall, a diagnosis, a death of a spouse, but have plan A, have plan B, and take the time to educate yourself on what different options or what different environments, communities, support would support both of those. So that when that window of opportunity comes, you're prepared and you're not making a reactive decision.
And you're making not just the decision, but you're also making the move. If that's the plan, you're making that move while you're best able to do it.
You're best able to do it, and you're able to continue having your best life possible. Again,
Yeah.
People think until I can no longer take care of myself. A lot of people, they wait until it's too late. And then that window that Eric talks about, that quality of life that they're wanting,
Yeah.
is no longer available because they've waited too long and they've let their decline in health go too far. They've let an accident or a fall that maybe could have prevented, that completely changed the game
Yeah.
now, happen. So doing it and making a change and putting in place what you need to stay safe, to stay independent, to stay active, to have the things that allow you to actually hold on to all of those things that you're so afraid of losing if you make a change.
So what I'm hearing is that even though we've got the COVID thing and it's going to be here a while longer, and we're not exactly sure how long a while is, and there'll be other things. If we sat down and worked out a plan, and so I would suggest from the parents' point of view, I know this is really hard to get the kids involved. And you might have to tell them to back off, slow down. I could see that. I have 6 siblings, so yeah, we saw a little bit of that, right? No, slow down, everybody. We're right here still.
Yeah, I can understand that, Mark. I have 8 siblings, so.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about. And everybody's at a different place. Oh, yes. So it got done. That's the first thing to know, is it got done. The flip side is that if we're the kids, Catherine, if we're the kids, it's not too soon to start this conversation.
No, it's not. And as I said, it's a topic nobody wants to discuss. There are so many times I meet with adult kids or even spouses where one spouse is thinking they need to make a change for them as a couple. And they say, I just don't know how to start the conversation. Mom just won't have the conversation with me. In my book, I put a lot of questions for people to stop and just consider. And what I've had people tell me time and time again is those questions actually help facilitate those conversations, because it is a conversation we're avoiding. It's a conversation we don't want to have because it goes against everything that we're taught to think about staying in our home as long as we can, or, the stigmas associated with senior living communities, or the role that we have in supporting loved ones in that decision. So it is critical to start the conversation, whether it's comfortable or not, but do it before you have to do it. So you don't have 6 kids or 9 kids that all have different opinions, that all think things should be a certain way.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and that the parent, the senior, actually has that luxury and opportunity to be in control of making the decision that supports them.
And that's a good question for people to consider. Do you want to do it while you're still in control, or do you want to wait? Now, some people will wait. Again, they're afraid, they're overwhelmed, and like you said, they don't even know where to start. So one place to start is to get your hands on this book right here. And how do we do that? If we wanted a copy of that book, how do we get it, Catherine?
Well, it's on Amazon. It's also on my website, catherineowens.com. I didn't share this with you, Mark, but I will share with you. I just published the 2nd edition of that book. So it's updated with the industry, things change and update. So it is an updated version that's available on Amazon. But I will say you bring up a really good point about when we should make that move. And the one thing I can't stress enough is just educate yourself. An educated decision is always the best decision. And if you have a question about how important it is to have those things in place, there's a study on aging, and it showed that 70% of how we age physically is based on our lifestyle choices. And that's at any age in our life. 70% of how we age is dependent on lifestyle choices. So what are you putting in place to give you the best lifestyle? 50% of how we age cognitively is based on our lifestyle choices. So you might not think it's important to have those things in place, and you're going to wait until you absolutely need to. But the point is to put them in place to continue staying healthy.
Yeah.
You not only have control in the decision, you have control in how you age, you have control in your quality of life, and you have control in your overall health.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So I was going to recommend that people all go down to Revel Eagle and do a tour and have lunch there, because I've done both of those things. I've decided not to tell them that, because if they go see that, they'll go, oh, I could do this quality of life. I could absolutely, and it's just going to shatter all those preconceived notions. They're going to be sitting there going, well, I don't know that I want to stay in my home anymore. I think that's a risk we'll take. Go visit and get out. And if it's not Revel Eagle, there's other lovely places. Just go, do it, look. If you can, with an open mind, be open to the fact that all those things that we grew up with might change. Our presumptions might change. But man, I think it's worthwhile. And I don't think you want to wait until somebody else makes this decision for you, because it probably won't be Revel Eagle that they'll be taking you to.
And you bring up a really good point. Again, look at multiple communities. I will say the one thing that I absolutely love about Revel Communities, and it's why I am with Revel Communities, is Revel, when I say independent living reimagined, a lot of people have that fear of having to do everything on a schedule, being told what I'm going to eat, becoming one of 200 instead of an individual. And often when people are afraid of losing that independence, it's really losing that identity. They have 80 years of doing things their way. Right. But you take a community like Revel, and everything is customized and personalized. So they provide all of those amenities, but it's how you want it. So you use it how you want. And some people, I've had a gentleman tell me, my wife had dinner at 6 o'clock every night. I just want to have dinner ready for me. I don't care what it is. So again, there's different amenities, different communities, different approaches, and how a community is going to support your individual wants and needs varies. And that's why it is important to go look at multiple places. But I will tell you, if you walk into a Revel community and try the food, you'll probably be back.
Yeah, I won't even tell people what I had there. Oh my gosh. Check out multiple places. You're going to find something that fits you. And I think that's worthwhile. And I think just the thinking through it is really worthwhile. And kids, I know you can't jump in and push mom and dad a particular way. Please don't ever let me catch you say, we had to put mom in a home. I can't stand that language. I don't like it. You never have to put anybody anywhere. You might help mom find a situation that works for her. Yeah. And it could be a community. It doesn't have to be a facility. It can be a community. And I've visited my mom's community many, many times, and it is a community. And people approach it from the standpoint that it is a community, not a facility. So, parting shot, Catherine, parting shot. We got to crank this down. Give us a parting shot.
I'm just going to reiterate the importance of putting in place what you need to age well and successfully. Again, for all of us, it's just, we actually have the opportunity to take control of having the best life possible.
Very good. Well, again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for helping us, kind of maneuver through the COVID concerns. I know they're out there, but we can handle it. It can be taken care of. We don't have to live in absolute fear of it. And here's to a safe and high quality life. And may that continue until you're gone and not stop before then.
Absolutely, Mark. It has been a pleasure, as always, to talk with you again.
All right. Take care. We'll talk at you again sometime.
Sounds good, Mark. Have a great holiday.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.